Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would hope we hear about child care at least once more today. Since we're not discussing any child care bills, a lot of pivoting. There's some football players that would be really proud of the pivoting that took place on the floor today. So I don't want you to confuse me with our former lieutenant governor, but I also grew up in a blue-collar household. My dad was a plumber and my mom was a bookkeeper. They both grew up during the Depression, and they taught all four of us boys an amazing work ethic. I've never had less than 2 jobs in my entire life. I'm always amazed when I meet somebody that only has 1 job, and I think that's impressive. I don't know how you do that. But, you know, you do what you have to do. So one of my favorite movies, Mr. Speaker, is a movie about a one-hit wonder called That Thing You Do, and there's a line in there when they hit it big, and the drummer leans over to the bass player and he said, "How do we get here, Skitch?" And how did we get here? As a society, how did we become a society that it's no longer necessary to call somebody back? How did we get here? If I have an appointment set up and I'm not going to be able to make it, why is it so difficult for me to pick up my little computer that we all have and call that person and say, "Listen, my car broke down, my babysitter canceled, can we reschedule?" Nope, I just blow them off. How did we get to a point where you offer me a job that I applied for and I blow you off and don't reply? You know, it reminds me of another movie called Vacation, where they went to meet Cousin Eddie, who's been unemployed for 8 years because he's waiting for a management position. I heard that today too. You're waiting for a job that better aligns with your skills. How about you just get back to work? And while you're working, then look for a different job. I don't understand the work ethic, Mr. Speaker, or the lack thereof. To me, this is just common sense legislation. I've heard words of cruelty today. Mean-spirited. It's mean-spirited to expect you to call me back. It's cruelty. I also heard today that people can't get child care for their new job. Well, who was watching your kids on your last job that you just lost? Through no fault of your own, I get that. Listen, I'm not bashing the system. I pay into the system as an employer. But if you lost a job and you had child care, and a week later or 2 weeks later somebody offers you a job, "Well, I don't have child care." Well, you did. What happened to your child care? I don't understand that. So we had the referendum, the job search referendum on the ballot in early April, Mr. Speaker. Statewide, 80% of the people voted for it. Even here in the conservative bedrock of Wisconsin and Dane County, it passed. So Governor Evers talks about the will of the people. I agree, will of the people. 80% of the people in your state, Governor, think that people should be required to look for work. And maybe, I know it's radical, I know it's radical, but maybe when it's offered, you should take it so that you're no longer collecting unemployment that your employers are paying into. I remember decades ago, and I know I'm not a kid, but I remember decades ago in school we had career day. I do not remember seeing unemployment compensation on the list. It was never meant to be a career option. It's a safety net for people who've lost their jobs, and I'm tired of being lectured in this body by people who have never made a payroll, who have never paid into UI, who have never hired somebody, who have never been ghosted. It needs to stop. This is common sense legislation. It's not cruel. It's not mean-spirited. If you want to know what cruel is, buy a business and see what it's like to have somebody not show up for an interview. Mr. Speaker, the vote is green.